Hello everybody and welcome back to Desperate Living, Cultural Chaos and Forgotten Stories. And today we're going to have a look at not one but two just reissued video nasties from the warped mind of Joe D'Amato, Anthropophagous the Beast and Absurd. Films that have a connection. The Absurd is a sort of sequel to Anthropophagous, and we'll come to the full weird tale of that in a moment. But first of all, let's have a look at the discs, both from 88 films, and to be perfectly clear on this, these are both discs that I did some work on. I contributed booklet text to both the films, which we'll have a look at in a moment. So these have been sent to me not as review copies, obviously, but as contributor copies. So yes, I haven't bought these, but equally I'm not being asked to review them, and my opinion on the films will be exactly what my opinion is. So if we have a look at these two movies, you can see that both of them have used, at least on the box, the original video nasty cover art, or at least a sort of facsimile of that, doing much the same that Severin did with their release of the two films a couple of years ago. The double set from Severin had the Absurd and Anthropophagus covers on the box. These are separate discs, but again using the original artwork, but fancied up a little bit. I mean, I don't know how well you can see that these. There you go. You can see that they've got a nice bit of silvering on the imagery, just making them a bit fancier. Minimalist back covers, and of course these are both UHD editions. Now, I mean, if you told me back in the early 80s that we'd be seeing UHD editions of Anthropophagus and Absurd, I would have thought you were mad, mainly because back in the early 80s I would have had no idea what a UHD edition or indeed a Blu-ray or even a DVD was. But beyond that, these films would have somehow reached the level of cultural acceptance that not only could they be passed uncut by the British censors, but that they would be put out in the best quality versions available. So let's have a look inside. Let's start off with Anthropophagus. Now, we can first of all start by perhaps arguing about the film's title. Is it Anthropophagus? Anthropophagous? Well, possibly. Is it Anthropophagus the Beast? Is it the Beast Anthropophagus? Just Anthropophagus? The cover artwork and the original logo of the film, and of course the logo as it shows up in the front of the movie, which is quite clearly an insert, just makes everything a little bit ambiguous. In America, this movie was originally released as The Grim Reaper, and in a cut R-rated version. In Britain, it was one of the maybe the less notorious video nasties, if only because it wasn't as well known as some of the others. But let's have a look inside the package. I first saw this film, when I say saw the film, I didn't see the film so much. I first became aware of this film when I saw the trailer for it on another release from VFP, who were the original UK distributors, and the trailer was just awash with gore and spectacle, made this look like an absolute masterpiece of outrageous horror. The fact that it was made by Joe D'Amato also suggested it might be wildly excessive. film itself turns out to be perhaps not that. So here we have the new edition. This is new cover artwork, I believe. Graham Humphrey's art, and we also have the original poster art. No offense to Graham, I'm just slipping this over to give you an idea of both bits of artwork. And as you can see here, there's a poster as well. What's this? Ah, there we go. Nice double-sided poster. Again, Graham's artwork on one side and the original on the other. For those of you who love this movie so much that you want to frame it, and you can see we've got the UHD disc and the Blu-ray here. Yeah, so this film has to be said is not the most exciting movie in the world. It's scenes of intense gore, and there are some amazing scenes of intense gore, somewhat interspersed with lots of footage of people wandering around an island at great length for no good reason. And what I would argue is one of the worst musical scores ever to appear on an Italian film. There are those who might disagree with that. When I watched this more recently, for the first time in several years, in order to prepare the booklet notes, I was more impressed with it than I had been. Still didn't think it was a masterpiece by any means, but it felt better. It felt like there was a slightly better pacing, had slightly more going on. Let's have a look at the book. So this is very nicely produced. And so I'm just going very quiet here while I have a quick look at this. This is my contribution. So the most interesting thing about this movie, beyond its appearance as a video nasty, is the fact that some years later, in around 1992, during another resurgence of video nasty panic in the UK, this is the film that was singled out by Channel 4 News and by some other news outlets, so presumably at the behest of the trading standards who had seized copies of it initially, as being a likely snuff movie. Now, I know, don't laugh too much. This was serious stuff back in the day. People had their lives ruined on this mad assumption that a clearly scripted, clearly acted Italian horror film with decent but not particularly convincing special effects could somehow be showing real footage of a woman being forced to give birth and then the baby being eaten. This was at the height of the Satanic panic when ideas of this kind of thing were going on all the time. So it's perhaps unsurprising that that particular scene was focused in on. Nevertheless, ludicrous stuff. Thank God we're beyond all that, eh? So this is nice. I mean, the box is really nice, really thick. You know, it feels like a work of substance. Whoever thought that we'd be saying that about this particular movie? or indeed this particular movie, Absurd, which is the sequel to Anthropophagous in many ways. It shares the same star, George Eastman. He is potentially playing the same character, but there's very little that connects the two films, has to be said. This is far closer, in fact, to D'Amato's version of an American slasher film of the era, say, Halloween. Halloween is a major influence on it, complete with this film has its own little Donald Pleasant style character in it. This is a lot of fun, actually. It works quite well. You have to just forget the idea that it's supposed to be a sequel to this movie, which we put aside. You could definitely watch this on its own. In fact, I'd seen Absurd long before I saw Anthropophagus, and quite frankly, if I hadn't already known, then I would not have made any connection between the two films other than being directed by Joe D'Amato. Joe D'Amato, of course, one of Italy's maddest renegade directors, somebody whose career we can't really get into in depth here because there's just so much to go into, but he's the man behind the Black Emmanuel series. He's made more than his fair share of controversial movies, sometimes described, not in a complimentary way, as being Italy's Jess Franco. I think that's a bit unfair to Franco. I don't think D'Amato has the same level of imagination. But his stuff is almost always outrageous and, often fun. If you have the chance to pick up the Severin Black Emmanuel box set, I definitely say go for it. It's a commitment, admittedly, but there's stuff in there that will just make your eyes pop. So again, we have Graham Humphrey's art on one side and original artwork on the other, and similarly the double-sided poster again. So a nice addition to both films, and certainly helps keep the idea that these films are connected. They are a series. Obviously, once again, we have the Blu-ray and the UHD disc. Now, as you can probably tell, because I only just opened these up, I haven't had a chance to watch the films yet, so I can't attest to the picture quality beyond the quality of the screeners that I originally looked at, which were great. And okay, so there's my text at the beginning of this booklet. Yeah, again, nice stuff, really well produced, giving these very unrespectable movies a sheen of respectability. If everything came out looking like this, well, for a start they'd be a lot more expensive, so that's probably not a great idea. But equally, I think this is where we are with collector movies now, with boutique labels doing something special, doing something interesting beyond simply re-releasing the film. And these, of course, have already been out on Blu-ray from '88, so it's probably a good idea for them to do an upgrade for the UHD beyond just the movie. I don't know how many people are upgrading from Blu-ray to UHD in the way that they may have done from DVD to Blu-ray, and obviously certainly did from VHS to DVD. But anything that encourages people to do so, and more to the point, gives them something to make it worthwhile doing so beyond just the same film in new packaging and slightly upgraded version, I think that's a great idea. So I'm really glad to have been involved in these two movies. I have owned various versions of them, including, of course, this Severin edition over the years, and it's great to see them out in these nice new copies. Now, these 88 editions that we have here are the website only versions of the film. So if you want to actually purchase these, you'll have to go to the 88 website. I'll put a link in the description. I heartily recommend you do so. Even if, like me, you don't think that Anthropophagous is all that as a movie, I think it's more fun than you might remember it if you haven't seen it in a long time, and certainly well worth picking up. And Absurd is a great example of an Italian slasher film aping American slashers while still being very Italian in style. So if you want to see more Blu-ray and UHD unboxings, more Blu-ray and UHD reviews, then feel free to let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, set your alerts, share this with friends, with enemies, with whoever might be interested. And if you wish to do so, support us on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. And we'll see you again very soon. But hold on, we did promise you more Severin Anthropophagous. And here it is, the legendary Anthropophagous plush doll. Made as the follow-up to the equally extraordinary Sinful Dwarf doll. As you can see, he comes with his guts already hanging out in tribute to the film's final moment, and you can get him to yank out more. Yes, he's got entrails for days. And once they're out, you can then get him to eat them.